Hello, Ashley.
Hello, good
Nice
afternoon.
seeing you here.
Indeed, indeed. We don't see each other enough, though, Debbie.
We absolutely don't. We should do something about that, Ash.
Indeed, indeed. Busy schedules.
Yes.
Oh, joys of the joys of working in Thrive at the moment, with
Yeah.
lots going on, all great stuff, and it's going to get even busier over these next couple of weeks because obviously we have Learning Technologies next week.
Yes, absolutely. And that is going to be such an exciting one. I have a few customers going down to do the customer power hour that are going to be able to showcase some of the really exciting stuff that they're doing. So, yeah, can't wait to hear all about it.
Brilliant. I've got a few of my customers as well that are going to be dropping in, so they'll certainly be sort of directing their way to yourself and the other account directors that are going to be manning the stall along with our wonderful business development team. So
Yeah.
enough about them. I'm not going to be there.
Yes, I know. But how, like, as a customer, think back to your days visiting LearnTech. How amazing would that have been
LearnTech's
to
just, do you
see
know, I
customers
think,
firsthand?
yeah, LearnTech has, I think, changed drastically over the years. So I think, I mean, wow, I got into L&D over 20 years ago, which is quite scary to think about now. Very scary. I'm not sure about yourself, Debbie, but it was the conferences, the exhibitions, etc., have changed dramatically from what I would have experienced as just a fledgling L&D individual coming in, so it's kind of cutting my teeth as an L&D officer and then going up to business partner, and you think you've made it when you've reached business partner level, consulting with some of your stakeholders around the organization, but then the different lens that you need to put on when you're the person that's procuring for the business, whether that's locally or whether it's globally. Very different sort of, we say, objective in that buying process, I think, isn't it? What about
Yeah.
yourself?
And the first time, just that different level of pressure to make sure that you've got it right. And you've dotted your I's and crossed your T's, and you're absolutely know that this is the right way forward and the best decision.
Absolutely. I think what we might look for personally in a learning platform or in a partner, do I say as a provider that you're going to have that relationship with, can be very different to actually your end stakeholder group. We look at this from an L&D lens, but they'll look at this platform from an operational perspective.
Yeah.
And the two, I think, can be very different at times. And they've certainly developed, they've matured in the years since I've joined L&D. Said quite some time ago, the objective of L&D, what is it that we're here to provide an organisation with? What is it that we're here to provide individuals with? Very different focus now that we're in 2025 to, 2021 when I first got, 2001, my goodness, yeah, 2001 when I first got into L&D.
Goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's as an L&D function, or people function actually procuring and being the owner of a system, but actually it's something for everyone, and you've really got to understand those challenges and pain points of everyone in an organization, because that can be completely different from what you see as a people function, just like you said, operations team and what they need versus a finance team, or just totally across the organization.
Definitely. So tell me a little bit more then about because I know that you were a customer and moved over into Thrive, the same as myself. So what was kind of the driver in your previous organisation to look for that new learning platform?
Little bit of I suppose a bit of background about me for anyone joining of who I am. I've been at Thrive for nearly 3 years, so I'm one of the account directors. previously a customer. So as you know, Ash, we've had many conversations about our previous experiences as customers of Thrive, and now talking from the other side. But I implemented Thrive into Ted Baker first started the conversations in 2020, very challenging year for everyone, and actually launched Thrive in 2021 amidst COVID and all the challenges and problems with being able to connect with a global team with vital information. And a lot of frontline teams that didn't have access to internal tools, you know, it was only their personal email or their mobile phone. So really to gauge how people were feeling and connect in that way. We didn't have any kind of platform. So we were starting from scratch, and Thrive was actually our third attempt at a learning platform. So it was something that we really had to get right, but the stakes have changed completely. So in previous projects, you know, there was more time. There was more time to get stakeholders bought in, more time on RFPs, etc. This time is very much an urgent need to be able to communicate with our global teams. So where previously we were about to launch with a phase approach with different countries, head office versus retail, so we could really do that learn and test. It was 7th of April, I think, 2021, and the whole company, 3,000 users against across 15 countries, 12 languages, went live on the same day. So it was a very exciting, a real shift on how we communicated and collaborated at Ted Baker.
Can you imagine? That's ongoing for I said that global sort of footprint, multi-language, which is significant in itself. Wow. I think many of us find it tricky to get one instance of a platform in the organization in one language with a handful of critical stakeholder audiences and groups that you need to take into account.
Yeah, absolutely. And just with every country doing really process and operations had their own ways of doing things. So it wasn't consistent through countries. So what Thrive was able to do was really pull everyone together through consistent process, and just that feeling of connection as well. I remember when we actually launched the platform and got people back into stores, we were able to gauge how people were feeling, you know, people that were at home and hadn't had the connection and hadn't been to work for a long time or hadn't interacted with people, and all of a sudden they were back day one having to kind of relearn everything to do with product, to do with things that had changed and new procedures that had come in place. So yeah, I really, it was absolutely essential at that time to be able to make people feel comfortable in getting back to work.
Yeah.
And what about you, Ashley? Sorry, you're more than a one-time thriver before you came over to this side, aren't you?
I am indeed. So if anybody else out there can sort of get the number, then hats off. I'm happily handing buttons over. So I've implemented Thrive on 3 occasions as a client, which I think kind of demonstrates not just my commitment to the organisation and how strongly I feel about the product, but equally about the relationship with the provider, which I think is absolutely critical. Getting the right platform, yes, but the relationship really is the cherry on the cake, and dealing with a provider that is happy to hear from you as a customer. They want you to be involved in their evolution as much as they can be involved in your evolution, as an L&D function or a comms platform, etc. Whatever instance it is that you're using the platform for. I found that with Thrive, and think that I'm lucky to have found that with Thrive. I certainly in the procurement process, and I've been through sort of robust procurement processes in each of the organisations where I have implemented Thrive and have looked at alternative providers. I'm sure that our leadership team would scold me for saying that you dared to go out to market, but I did, yes, because that's part of what we do. We want to make sure that we're getting the very best for our stakeholder population, for our end users, but to ensure that the platform will meet the objectives that we have. We're L&D function alongside sort of the other functions within in any organisation. It's proving our value, being able to provide metrics of success in the interventions that we deliver. And I think one of the things that I really wish that I'd sort of known just earlier in the whole of that particular process of, I think back, like I said, 20 odd years ago to when I was first setting off in L&D, it's about actually build more with the business and not necessarily for the business. So it's so easy for us as L&D professionals that we work in vacuums, we build programs, we launch modules, we cross fingers and look for it to hit. So a few years ago, if you said actually work more with and less, I said, for the business and the provider, that would have been something that I certainly would have looked at doing. But I'm fortunate that I've hit on a platform and a partnership that wants to hear from me as a then customer as such. And it's been really rewarding as well, Debbie, to see not just the impact that the platform has been able to have within my organisations in terms of helping support us meet our strategic goals, but equally to see sort of where I've been able to influence with our other stakeholder groups here, the actual product, and to see the evolvement of the product since we first launched. It's said something that with some of the other organisations that are out there within the marketplace, you wouldn't perhaps get that close to be able to do that.
If you think back to the very first time that you were looking for a platform, and this might have changed when you've worked for new organisations, but what's been your non-negotiables when you've been looking for a new learning platform?
Yeah. So for me, I've got one real sort of litmus paper test that I put out there when I'm going through a procurement process. And it's all very good seeing the platform from a front-end perspective, from a learner perspective, and having the checklist to say, is it going to deliver X, Y, and Z for my end users? Because actually, I think at the moment we're, as L&D professionals, there is a level of expectation across the platforms and the products that are available on the marketplace. So yes, when I look for, do you have the standard that I would expect? And then what are the unique selling points that you may have in terms of platform functionality? I like to lift the lid on the bonnet a little bit to see the nuts and bolts that go into the platform itself. So it's all well and good. I've a vested stakeholder group in my front end users that are consuming content by the platform. But I've also got a stakeholder group that sit alongside me, be it in L&D, HR, communications, my exec team, etc. So what I need to be confident in is that the platform will deliver what I need it to deliver for me to be able to demonstrate value. So looking at metrics, data, embedded analytics, etc., that sit within the back of the platform. For me, that's as important as the front end. And if a provider isn't open to talking about that with me, then that kind of sets a red flag off immediately. If they're not willing to show, well, this is what an example could be of what you have, again, it's a little bit of a red flag for me, because I know that my success, my team's success, is going to be measured on not just qualitative feedback, but quantitative metrics. And those quantitative metrics are generally extracted from a platform. So that's my non-negotiable. What can you show me about behind the scenes? What have you got there in terms of your data? If you haven't got it now, where are you heading with it? And is it something that we can work together with? And that's, I think, any functionality, not just analytics and metrics, but anything, yeah. If your platform doesn't deliver it currently, is it something that we can work together as a partnership to look to develop? How about yourself? What would be on your checklist?
I guess there's a few things in terms of, like, when I think back, functionality of a platform. Yeah. So those non-negotiables of, we absolutely have to have this, and sometimes that can change along the way. But because we were 70% frontline teams without access to laptops, etc., we had to have a mobile app, and an app that had great functionality for what frontline teams needed to do. Another one was that it really reflected the brand as well. I remember seeing quite a few platforms thinking, "Ooh, there's lots of reports, there's lots of functionality, but it looks absolutely awful, and completely boring interface, black and white, nothing to it, just something that's not going to engage our team. It would have been switch on and I'm off again." So when you work for a brand that's got a strong identity and a colourful, strong identity, then whatever tools that you put in place has got to reflect that brand as well.
I can imagine.
The main thing, especially because it was our first launch of a digital platform, the main thing was the partnership. Like you said, that was so important to us because we had been let down previously by a vendor. So it made me more nervous, and I knew that I really had to trust my instinct in terms of how the relationship was, and like you say, under the bonnet, the transparency of the conversations that you were having as well, and that you felt comfortable to be curious and ask endless amount of questions as well. But the partnership, and just knowing that you mentioned this before, like, grow with your partner as well. It might not be everything that was on your wish list from day one, but it's how do you grow and build that together, and is your voice important to them? Are you being listened to? Are they someone that where they've got the customer truly at heart? So that was, I would say, above everything, my non-negotiable.
No, I know that as a customer, I've been several times put in the situation where we've procured a particular platform, and then it's been procured for a particular reason, but then the real heavy sell comes in about all of the additional modules that you can bolt on for an additional price, and it becomes quite a hard sell with some organizations. And one of the things that I do love about what we have is that our platform has so many different elements integrated into the one platform that you can quite easily use it as that one go-to place. But again, we're very open and very honest, and want to work with our customers to bring them into sort of the additional sort of offerings that we've got around the business. And those offerings are there to demonstrate value. It's not necessarily just an additional platform piece that needs to be bolted in. Actually, it's an offering that's going to help you in terms of whether that's consultancy, whether that's a particular service, but it's to support our customers in driving their longer term goals and objectives. It's really a approach to seen in the marketplace.
I'm sorry to anyone that can hear my dog frantically barking at the door. Can you hear it?
He agrees.
He's applauding you.
He absolutely said, you can tell it's live. When they say don't work with dogs and children, don't they? I don't have my dogs here today, but I do have my child. So at some point she will probably pop her head in to tell us that she's hungry or that she needs a drink, or she's fallen off a scooter, Debbie. So
well, at least he's not nibbling at my arm. We've had that recently with one of our account directors who's got a new puppy, and she's been on calls where he's literally been nibbling. So we can, I think he's gone quiet now.
That probably leads into what I was going to ask you next then. And I pretty much bet part of my response that you'll give for this question is that, so now that you're here in Thrive, yeah, what is it like, and what do you wish you'd known as a customer, yeah, about perhaps the way that we are on this side of the fence?
Yeah, I guess being on this side of the fence has just really reinforced how I felt as a customer. You know, you never really quite know. So my customer success manager, when I was on the other side, is a colleague now, and we really did work hand in hand. And when you're a very small team, and there's lots of changes in the organization, it's absolutely great to feel that you've got that extra partner, that, you know, expert that you can go to, but also someone that can bring ideas that you never even thought of when you're kind of in the midst of the BAU. And that partnership continued our entire length of when I was a customer. But even thinking about other people in the organization, you know, having calls with the data team or the marketing team, bringing in those experts to really help you. I guess what I realize now is it genuinely is passion at heart in making sure that we are there to help our customers succeed. Yeah. So that could seem a little bit fake on the other side, but I've seen it from both sides. I know that that's the case. So just reassurance, I guess. I was right.
You made the right choice, Debbie. And you spoke there about, I said, that relationship between the customer and the Thrive individual, whether it's your customer support manager or your account director, etc. One of the things that I found really refreshing and said difference and of absolute value is the way that as customers we were actively promoted to engage as a customer base as well. And we were promoted, if you like, and encouraged to speak to different customers, yeah, about how they're using their platform, what their challenges are, get that insight, perhaps thoughts, suggestions, and again, something that was fresh. And I hadn't necessarily seen that way of working, that networking across a customer basis in other companies that I'd either worked with in the past or looked to work with in the past. They may have an online forum group set up somewhere that was self-administered, but certainly not the amount of interaction, the live events, the face-to-faces, the virtual sessions, etc., and just that huge promotion that, you know, we want customer X to talk to customer Y. Yeah, you're having this as a challenge. Let me put you in contact with this individual at this particular company because they had something similar. And everybody is just so open and willing to talk to each other about their experiences, their challenges, and how they're using the platform to overcome those.
I'm not sure it does exist anywhere else, Ash. No. Certainly not from what I've seen. And like you say, going back to being on both sides of the fence, I really quite enjoyed being curious and being nosy when I was a customer. If I was asked to, you know, would you mind having a chat with such and such who are thinking about getting Thrive as a communications tool or skills platform, like whatever that may be, and not just retailers, all kinds of different organizations as well. And I was up for doing it because I found it really interesting. And also you were only expected to be honest about your experience. And I really don't think there's a lot of companies that would take that chance or take that risk. And even now, like I had a chat with a customer this morning who I did a call with when I was first a customer, and he was with another organisation. We've got a new customer on board, and I'm going to be their account director. And I remember a few years ago I did a webinar with them about using Thrive in retail for frontline teams. So it's very much encouraged, honestly, to openly connect, network, and learn from each other as well, which is just completely invaluable.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. And you're right. I don't think there's anybody else, to put it politely, I don't think there's anybody else that does that. That anybody that would open themselves up to that level of, I don't want to say risk, because it is, isn't it? Interconnecting customers. And let's be fair, not every customer will have a smooth experience. There are some teething issues, perhaps, from time to time, etc. But we learn from those. We're very open to learning and getting that feedback from our customer base. And as a customer, being confident that when I give that feedback, it is going somewhere. It just isn't going to be sat within an inbox. It will be picked up, it will be actioned, and quite often at a senior or an exec level.
Yeah. Have you ever, in your procurement of sites, have you ever had a conversation or a time where you've gone, oh, definitely not them, and scored them off the list? Have you had that? Why?
I have, yes. And more often than not, do I dare say this? More often than not, it's when I've been looking at platforms that have been interconnected. So they tend to come from the core HRIS system. Because I know people have fantastic experiences. So hats off to the providers out there, the market leaders in some respects that are able to do that. But for me, from an L&D function, I know that Thrive was purposefully built to be that. So I know that it will tick the vast majority of boxes for what I was intending or needing to have within the organisations where I was setting it up in. And what I've found from experience is that some of the HR platforms that had the additional L&D bolt on, it was a little bit like sort of square peg round hole situation. Yeah, we were trying to shoehorn something in that wasn't purposefully built to be what it was intended to be. It was an afterthought, it was an additional module, etc. And I've seen some that I think you mentioned this earlier, very antiquated, old school, very traditional in that they probably were initially engineered 30 odd years ago, and we've just been adding additional into that particular product rather than thinking actually times have changed, requirements have changed, we need to go to market now with a new product, a new look and feel product that is purpose built for the times that we find ourselves within. And one of the organisations that I've worked with previously, exactly that, swapped out a very antiquated, aging platform that may have been fit for purpose kind of 15, 20 years ago, but wasn't able to deliver the level of experience for the front end users. Absolutely. Look, feel, ability to engage with the content. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, one of the key drivers for me around what's going on behind the scenes was generally just very difficult to administer. So difficult to get content in, difficult to extract information and data out of the platform, and difficult to manage once it was, like I said, once it was in there, difficult for it, very inflexible. So yes, I've certainly ticked straight off the list, as I'd actually look, feel, product itself, functionality isn't going to work for where my department is heading. and the needs of the business, both now but predictive needs for 12 months, 3 years down the line. How about you? I think you mentioned this yourself, that was probably one of the key things for you over at Ted Baker too.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the key things that I used as part of the business case to say that I believe I've found the right partner for us, because, you know, previously we'd been looking at other platforms that might have been around for 10, 20 years, and you have a look at what they've achieved in that time, and then you realize that you're speaking to a provider that is relatively new to the market, and you realize how invested they are in that speed to innovation. And actually that's exactly what's happened, in that over the last few years the functionality has evolved so much, the platform has evolved so much, that I don't believe there's others that there's so much red tape, isn't there? There's so many different channels to go through. Customers don't necessarily have a voice. So getting one piece of functionality, you might see in, you know, in a year, what Thrive's achieved in these years since I've sort of been involved is just amazing. And that investment continues because it is about the success of the customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know, because like I said, beginning, Learn Tech is coming up next week. There are going to be some fantastic things going out, which we can't talk about. But just if you're at Learn Tech, anybody that happens to be listening, make sure that you get yourself along to the Thrive stall. Sure that you won't be able to miss us in there. But Derek, you're going to be at Learn Tech next week. Any suggestions for people that might be watching, that sort of, what are great questions to ask your vendors at Learn Tech? What would you be going there asking them?
I guess one of the things that I'd be heading to is our customer power hour, and I'd be heading to ask the actual customers that have, you know, spent a number of years working with us, what the relationship's like and what their experience has been. It's very easy for me to say anyone in the Thrive team will answer your questions and give you everything you need, but there's nothing to be actually seeing a customer and asking them and getting them to showcase the platform. So I know that's 2:00 on day one of Learn Tech, so that's where I would be heading. What else would I ask? I'd be really asking about how the platform could not only, you know, track compliance, but how can we really how can we really demonstrate the impact that it's having on the end users? So how do I know if someone is showcasing the behaviors that we set out in their role? Like, how can the platform support us with that, other than viewed a piece of content? Or that's definitely one of the things. What about you, Ash? What would be one of your top questions?
Oh my goodness. I would be, because it's one of the key things that's out there at the moment, I'd be definitely asking more around the AI pieces. AI has come on exponentially since I got into learning. And I think a lot of organizations and critical stakeholders within organizations still feel it as being something to be scared of, or perhaps a threat. And I know that I, as a customer, wish I'd embraced AI a lot sooner. It always has that element of anxiety about it, but it has really unlocked loads of new capacity and functionality for L&D teams, for comms teams out there. And so I definitely be asking around sort of the AI pieces. If people are in organizations that perhaps aren't ready for AI, talking to some of our customers that have been in similar positions or are on the same journey as them, to see how they're managing that conversation internally with their stakeholder groups. Because said AI's here, I don't believe that it's going anywhere. And it's something that the quicker we embrace that, and again, go on the journey with it to help define what it looks like, the more value it will have for us as L&D professionals or as comms professionals in using it as one of those integrated tools within the business. So yeah, definitely I'd be looking at the AI pieces. I'd be asking the teams on our stall and on the other stalls, what are you doing in this particular area? And this, what does your roadmap look like for AI for the coming 12 months, 3 years, what have you? Where are you taking your platform?
There's absolutely no getting away from it, and you don't want to be left in the dust. It's I can only imagine how much time that I would have spent as an L&D professional. Maybe could have started to focus on, strategy and bigger picture rather than heading a document. So definitely AI. If you're not already on board with it, now's the time to get on board.
Absolutely. It's going to make for a really interesting Learn Tech. Last one was big. Last one was really exciting. This one is going to be sort of, as I said, perhaps our flagship.
Watch this space.
Absolutely.
And if anyone's listening that's going to Learn Tech, yes, join us there. Come and see us on the Thrive stand.
Perfect. That sounds like it could be a really great place for us to wrap up then.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashley. It's lovely to see you on this Monday afternoon.
Yeah, indeed. The sun is kind of shining. Hopefully that continues over the rest of the week as we head into the bank holiday for Easter. So, as I said, folks that have joined us, thank you very much for joining us. Of course, if there are questions, comments, if you want to talk to a member of the Thrive team in more detail, either about your current platform or a future platform, etc., I'm sure that somewhere there will be a link that drops you through to contact us in LinkedIn. But it's been lovely to have you all join us this afternoon. And
as you can see, me and Ash are always up for a chat. So feel free to reach out and connect with us as well.
Yeah, there's a connect button somewhere on this screen, isn't there? So yeah, definitely reach out to us, guys. But thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you,
and we look forward to speaking hopefully with some of you soon.
Thank you.